Hi, I'm Bryce Crittenden.
Hi, I'm Caroline Land, and welcome back to EPL's Overdue Finds.
Caroline, are you excited? Today we're recording our special Christmas episode.
I'm very excited.
Yeah.
I'm very excited.
We have on our Christmas sweaters today.
Yes.
We don't, but no.
We do.
I feel like we should have.
Yes. Yeah. But we've got that spirit.
We do, absolutely. We could have at least recorded today with Santa hat or something like that, but
the listeners can picture us wearing those.
That's right. Please do.
It's all the same.
Yeah, and we're really excited today because we're talking about one of our favorite subjects, and we brought it up on last year's Christmas episode.
Yeah.
We're both huge fans of A Christmas Carol.
Yes.
And we're really excited to be talking about our favorite versions of A Christmas Carol today. I like to think that we've actually got two Christmas Carol experts joining us today.
I'm very excited.
Yes, I can't wait to hear their takes on it and some of their favorite versions. We're very pleased and we're very excited today to be joined by two actors from the Citadel. First, I want to introduce Belinda Cornish, actress, playwright. What else am I missing there? I know there's lots.
I don't know. General dishwasher. Dog's body. Yes, dog owner.
You're
dog
a producer.
Walker. I'm a producer. Oh, thanks, Julien. Thank you. I'm a producer. Recently have found myself doing a tiny bit of directing, though I wouldn't call myself a director, and also an improviser.
And then I also have to mention you also have another play coming out at the Citadel, I think early next year.
That's
called
right.
the Garno Block, right?
The Garno Block, yes,
Yeah.
I do.
Yeah.
I do.
Based on Todd Babiak's book, I believe.
That's correct. It is, and it opens March 14th next year. It's in the McLab at the Citadel, yeah.
Nice.
Very excited. So I'm in the middle of writing that now, or working on that sort of draft, whatever I'm on.
You're keeping busy.
Yeah.
And we should mention this year in Christmas Carol, you Hilda Fezziwig.
I do.
Yeah. So we're gonna talk a little bit more about your character. We're really excited about learning all about it. Also joining us today, Mr. Julien Arnold.
Hello.
Welcome to the show. How are you?
Okay, I'm great this morning, thanks.
Excellent. So this year, of course, most people, if you've been to Citadel's production of A Christmas Carol past years, and if you haven't, you're totally missing out, but definitely go. This year, you're actually playing Jacob Marley, but in the past, you played a wide variety of characters, including Bob Cratchit and Ebenezer Scrooge, right?
That's right, yeah. I was in the very first production about 20 years ago, and I played Bob Cratchit, and then I played Scrooge, or shared the role with Glenn Nelson, another wonderful actor and local actor, and we did that for 2 years recently.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much. I know you guys are in the middle of lots of rehearsals right now, and you're getting ready to open up.
This episode, if you're listening today, it is December 6th, and Christmas Carol is playing now. So when you are listening to this, it is already open.
It's already open.
Yeah.
We're already doing the play for the lovely people.
We're recording this one a little early, but that's okay though.
It's never too early to get into the spirit.
Absolutely not. So before we get talking about A Christmas Carol, we'd like to start the show by sharing some of our own personal overdue finds. And Belinda and Julien, I know you guys are right in the middle of rehearsals right now. So is there anything you've had a chance to read recently or watch that you can recommend for our listeners?
I've been reading a wonderful book called Collapse.
Okay.
Which is a bit dreary for this talk, but it's about the different societies which have collapsed over the course of history. So.
Oh, that sounds interesting.
Do you know what? I just read a similar book called, and I can't say the full title of it on your podcast, I'm assuming, but it's called How We effed it all up, and it's about how humans from the beginning of time have made really colossal mistakes and created catastrophes. Starting with, how agriculture began in ancient Mesopotamia and how that was a terrible, terrible idea.
And I've been watching The Crown.
Oh, okay.
For the first time, that the Netflix series about Elizabeth II, and so I've been talking like that, the way they talk, specific, which I have to erase from my brain because in this version of Christmas Carol we talk with North American accents instead of the English accents from the last 19 years.
Caroline,
yes.
What have you been enjoying lately?
Well, I'm going to do a terrible job of pretending that this is our Christmas episode here because I just recently saw the Alberta Ballet's production of Frankenstein, which was running here in Edmonton over Thanksgiving. It was running over Halloween, more appropriately. And it was just an incredible show that used ballet and movement, and the monster in it was just this contortionist who was getting across this anguish, and it was just lovely. And so it's driven me back to the source material of Frankenstein by Mary Shelley. So I'm revisiting that and taking a look. I just love the story of of the creation of Frankenstein, the story, and how she was, I think, only 18 when she wrote it, and it was written in a weekend at Lord Byron's house in a contest for a ghost story. So it's an incredible just story, and basically it was written, I believe it was written because like Lord Byron basically said she couldn't write a compelling ghost story, and so she was like, I'll show you, and sat down and wrote Frankenstein. And so after seeing this most recent interpretation of it, going back and looking at what they kept and what they changed from the novel, just really fascinating.
Yeah, there was a movie that came out, I think, earlier this year, starring Elle Fanning. And she plays Mary Shelley. I haven't seen it yet. It looked really good, but
I just saw a bunch of trailers for it. Every time I think I went to the Princess Theatre, they were running a trailer for it, but I haven't actually seen that movie. But yeah, it's based on the experience of writing Frankenstein.
So is there a certain version that you really want to recommend people check out then? Is it mostly the book or like the original source material?
Yeah, I would start with that. I don't know enough about it to have a particular edition that I'm recommending, but just Frankenstein by Mary Shelley on our Christmas episode.
Nice. Very appropriate.
Yes.
I also have a very appropriate pick on our Christmas episode today. We talked a little bit about like the fall of civilization earlier. So my pick, and this is a weird one, it's called Trashed, and it's by a gentleman by the name of Dirk Backdorf. So for those of you who are familiar with the story of my friend Dahmer, he's the one who actually wrote that. So he's an illustrator. So this is a graphic novel, and it's actually an Eisner Award-winning novel, and it's loosely based on his own experiences of being a garbage man. So really good Christmas reading, actually.
That was a little bit of a left turn.
It was
in the story.
Yeah, just slightly. But basically, yeah, it's just very loosely based on his experiences being this small town garbage man in his early 20s. There's lots of hilarious interactions within the graphic novel, basically dealing with people who kind of make sure that he's not denting his garbage can, kind of city administration, like the city manager and the mayor and all these other elected officials. So, and kind of interestingly enough, woven into this story is this, and this doesn't sound exciting, but it is, this history of garbage and garbage collecting. So they talk about how in like the early, I think it was like the 1500s was when they really started to develop over in England this system for collecting up all this garbage, because before it was just basically thrown in the street. And you know, all these big cities like Paris, London realize we need to do something with all this trash. So talks about a little bit about the history of garbage men and basically how much garbage that we, especially here in North America, waste every year. So it's funny and it's educational.
Yeah, I think that the way that how a society or how people approach garbage is one of those things that is a real indicator, especially in like period pieces. And I remember there's an episode of Mad Men, I think fairly early on. I think the Drapers were still together, but they go on a picnic, and
I remember this,
and it's this lovely scene. Well, I can't remember, but it's this beautiful scene, however they're acting, even if it's dramatic. And then at the end of the picnic, they get up and they shake out the picnic blanket and just walk away from all the garbage. And it's enough that it's just like jarring to watch it because it's just so not done anymore.
Well, if I can just dovetail in there, it's interesting, this Jared Diamond book, Collapse, that I've been reading. so much information about these early civilizations comes from their garbage.
Yeah.
They figure out, what they've been eating and how that changed. And it's all basically from the refuse from these civilizations. So that's interesting.
Yeah, totally.
It's a great graphic novel, and if you're looking for any last-minute gifts for somebody who is into graphic novels or just really funny, interesting stories, check it out. We have it here at the library.
Great. So let's dive in and get into more about A Christmas Carol. So we've touched on this a little bit about your experience with A Christmas Carol. You've both been in the show before, but what is your history with A Christmas Carol?
Julien's is far more extensive than mine. I have been in it twice before, and one time I played Mrs. Cratchit to your Mr. Cratchit.
Yes.
Yeah, we were Cratchits one year together. That was lovely. But yes, I've been in it twice before. Both times I played Mrs. Cratchit, and it was lovely. It was delightful.
And as I mentioned earlier, Tom Wood did the original adaptation, and was directed by Bob Baker about 20 years ago. And I remember Tom saying, I want you to be my Cratchit. And I didn't know much about The Christmas Carol at that point. I grew up in a small town in BC, and we didn't have a television, so I hadn't seen a lot of the early versions, but I had an idea of what he was talking about. And I was pretty thrilled, actually. And amazingly, that production kind of kept going for 19 years, so that was great to have some work at Christmas time. And it was a really interesting acting exercise to do the same role in the same production about 13 times, because you get so used to it that you're able to kind of relax and really explore the usually putting up a play is such a, how would you describe that experience?
It's a kind of
fraught.
Yes, it's fraught. It's often fraught.
Yeah. So it's nice to be able to not have that kind of pressure of like remembering all your lines, remembering all the blocking.
Trying to remember your choices, make them seem like those of a natural, real human being.
Yes.
So that
very seldom happens when you're able to revisit a role that many times. So that was great.
So like you just kind of touched on, I imagine, were you just able to roll in these last few years and just be like, I know I have to stand over there. This is my line. Would it really change that much?
It didn't change that much over those 19 years because the blocking was very much the same. The costumes had to be let out a little bit as certain actors put on a few pounds.
I think they just like accidentally left those costumes in the dryer.
Yeah, right. Every year they shrunk those costumes. But what was interesting, I found in terms of acting, is that somehow the role was more physically in my body. So I remember the second or third year, my hand would reach out for something, and I would have no idea what it was. But I realized that my body had learned the blocking, and I wasn't sure. My hand is reaching out. It must be to grab a candle or to open a door. How strange that that sort of retained and the lines weren't there was the movement.
I think that there is, to a sense, for the audience, that it was something that they had maybe seen before and were coming back to a Christmas tradition, certainly an Edmonton Christmas tradition of going to see A Christmas Carol at the Citadel. And I know that last year there was some advertising around it being the last time for that adaptation. And I remember hearing this kind of concern around, like, well, what will we see next year? Before it was really understood that there would be another production. But for audiences, I think going back and seeing the same actors, the same movement, they knew what to expect and really saw it as part of a Christmas tradition.
That was something that was really extraordinary about it, and that will, I think, continue, which is this big, glorious, opulent production of A Christmas Carol at the Citadel is an Edmonton tradition, and it's a rich tradition that families would come back year after year and make it part of their Christmas activities, but make it part of their family activities, which in a way it speaks to the themes of the show itself. And people I heard that myself, that people were very concerned that there would be, what will we do now? I'm thrilled to hear that there was a new production coming. And
the new version of Christmas Carol, it's all like American accents, right?
Yeah, the idea is that we are it's sort of like a Miracle on 42nd Street, A Wonderful Life. It has that kind of New York Christmas Christmas time vibe. So it's very much not an English adaptation, which is a little hard to get out of my head because having listened to all the accents in for the original version that we did, the accents were a big part of it, weren't they?
I suppose so. It didn't register as much with me because as a British person, I suddenly went, oh look, here I am in old-timey England. But there's something. I can't really put my finger on exactly what it is, but there's something really really wonderful about bringing it into late 1940s. I won't say New York because it isn't specifically set in New York, but it's that, as Julien said, it's that feel. And there's something about that time in North America that has that excitement, that left something very wonderfully traditional and family-oriented, and with great hope for the future about that time. It really fits so beautifully.
And we've also, like my friend James McDonald, who used to run the Free Will Players here in town, he always sits down and watches It's a Wonderful Life with his family on Christmas Eve. I think it's a very strong tradition in their family. And so what we've done here is kind of blend those two traditions of Dickens' A Christmas Carol, which the Alistair Sim is such a famous version of it that people always watch, or it's always on TV. We've kind of melted those two together, so we've got both in one. Nice.
I think that's a really nice way to look at it. I have to say it's beautiful. It's a beautiful play.
And this production
this new adaptation, it's really lovely.
It's lovely and has all of that opulence and that there's lots of special effects and magic. And
all the exciting
even more, more. I'd say this versions.
Absolutely. I don't know if I can say this, so we may lift this out afterwards. Your listeners may or may not know, when you start rehearsing in the rehearsal hall, the wonderful stage managers will tape out the shape of the stage and sort of where various set pieces are. And we were walking around the taped stage yesterday, and there are various squares taped out on the floor that we just went, well, what are those? And they said they're trapdoors. They're all just hidden trapdoors that things will be disappearing through and coming out of. And so there's going to be lots of magic.
Very excited. And so the Christmas tree was always one of my favorite things.
Oh, the Fezziwig Christmas tree.
At the Fezziwig's party. Yeah. That just filled me with such joy. And which that scene is meant to do. And it was just this wonderful marriage of the play, the set design, the intentions coming through. I just always love the Christmas tree. Yes. So I'm very excited to hear that there are things like that. Corey Cessan is the set and costume designer, and he is he's a genius. He actually, I believe, apprenticed under Leslie Frankish, who was the designer for the previous version of A Christmas Carol, and he has been all over the country designing incredible shows and winning prizes and being beloved and lauded, and very deservedly. He's very, very brilliant, and the design that he's created is remarkable. It's just, I think it's stunning.
What might be wonderful for an audience that came to see the original Edmonton production would be kind of discovering the parallels and how that's been translated. So, for instance, the Fezziwig party is now this huge 20s kind of flappers dance party with a live band. So that'd be neat to see. Oh, I remember last time it was that. Now we've updated it to the 20s. Yeah. And that would be kind of a neat...
I think you're right.
Fun game.
Absolutely.
And take a shot of your toddy every time you know.
Little Christmas Carol drinking games.
Yeah. So is the new one set in the 20s then, or is it a little bit later, like 40s?
No, it's set late 40s. Okay. But the Ghost of Christmas Past takes
of course.
Scrooge back to his childhood in sort of the early 1900s, and then his youth in, I think the Fezziwig Christmas party is set in sort of 1919, which was the first sort of year of jazz and when flappers really came into being, and we were starting to get into the 20s.
And then they kind of get into the 30s where Scrooge wants to make money in the Depression, and everyone has that life's a little more hard scrabble. You can imagine that people had to make hard choices, and so Scrooge kind of his heart starts to harden over in the 30s.
Well, and it's interesting because
a businessman who must survive.
It reflects I think a time period in the world, though it's far in the past now, it's a time period in a world that we are very familiar with historically, in terms of understanding what the 20s were, what the dirty 30s were, what the Depression was, what the, even if it's a bit of a hazy understanding, it's an understanding of the fact that post-war, what things were like, and what the sort of change and the hope that was coming towards the end of the 40s going into the 50s, which is sort of where the modern day portion of the play is set. So, it reflects society's hope as well as Scrooge's hope at the end of the play, where he goes, things can change. I can change. The world can change. It can be better.
As you're talking about this, it fits so well that I'm surprised that there haven't been more adaptations that have set it in this time period, because the opulence, the free-flowing money of the Fezziwigs party in the 1920s, and then the Depression, and how that is Scrooge coming through there, maybe even more hard-hearted than other. It just makes so much sense.
So was this one written here then, or was this was this an adaptation from somewhere else?
No, it's an adaptation written by our local playwright David Van Bell.
Oh yes,
and he's done a beautiful job. That's just
I think that must be quite a challenge as a playwright. Actually, yes. Belinda, you can talk to this too, because of Belinda's work on adapting Tom Babiak's novel. Todd, sorry. Todd, I have a cold. It sounds like Tom. It's Todd. I said Todd.
It's fine. But he's in Tasmania. He'll
Tasmania Todd, we call him. But to be able to kind of like distill a novel down to a 2 hour or an hour and 45-minute window, where the audience kind of has to get the whole sweep of the story. Part of the Dickens novel, when I read it, novella, that's kind of, I think, part of the reason it adapts so well is not like a big tome like some of his other large books. It's actually a fairly fast read, but it must be tricky. And you must, you're going to have to lose some characters. It's a very epic kind of portrayal of London at that time, and all the different classes, and so how do you do that? I think David's done a wonderful job of doing it, but what's the key, do you think?
I can't speak to what David has done. For me, it's about trying to be, and for me it's a little different, because it's a modern novel. I had the room to sort of change the narrative just a little if needed. But I think for me the thing is finding the essence of what the story arc is, what the strong sort of narrative points are, what the main drive is, what will be satisfying as an arc, and having the characters fulfill that, basically finding what there is in the novel and what there is in the characterizations that fulfills that arc.
Have you ever
and
had
feeds into it.
To amalgamate a few different characters into one character?
No, I haven't actually, because the Garneau block is kind of a big is a sort of fairly big ensemble, not the size of ensemble piece that Christmas Carol is, but it is an ensemble piece. But yes, but I could see that happening in something like a Christmas Carol.
I think he has done that.
I think he must have done.
He sort of takes a few characteristics and puts them into one.
Yeah,
I've heard of that happening, and sort of seen that happening in other adaptations too. It makes a lot of sense to be able to go, okay, who is this and what do they serve, and can this other person sort of feed into that? And
he's done a wonderful job.
It's beautiful.
And we were part of some of the workshops, so that's another kind of blessing as an actor, to see a play progress from the first draft to different drafts, and even once in a while you'll say something just off the cuff, like, "Hey, wouldn't it be cool if?" And usually that player goes, "Yeah, right." But sometimes it makes it to the final draft, and there's a little bit of us in that version, so that's exciting.
So what does that process look like? Like, I've heard it, like the workshop process. Like, what is that exactly?
Well, usually the Citadel will hire a bunch of actors for a day, and you'll read the play a few times, or you'll read it once and then talk about the play and then read it again. And usually the playwright is there taking notes, and it could be a bit terrifying, I would think.
Yeah, it's a combination of exciting and terrifying, and also oddly comforting too, because there is this off the hook. it's weirdly at opposite ends of the spectrum, because on the one hand, it's like you're taking your skin off for everyone before you're ready, because that's the point of a workshop, but the play is not done yet. And so you're going, hey, everybody, read this, look at this piece of art I haven't finished. Don't judge it, but help me make it better. And so as I say, it's kind of like taking your skin off, but also at the same time, there is this instant disclaimer of going, we all know it's not done. So the actors are here to read it, bring it to life, bring it off the page for you, and then you can hear, oh, that works better than I thought, or oh dear God, that doesn't work at all. The only problem, I think a lot of playwrights agree, is that sometimes when you get a room of really good actors, they will make things work that shouldn't. So there can be a scene that isn't actually that great, and you get a bunch of good actors, and suddenly it's like, whoa, well, that's better than I thought. It's like, no, don't be fooled by the good actors making your not very good thing work. You still have to, Or
I've been in a few workshops where it just gets a bit awkward, because I try to be very gentle, and, you want to be very considerate, because this is, like I always imagine writing a play or any piece of art, putting it in front of other people. Your heart is there on there, so you have to be very, but some people don't. Some actors, probably less experienced, don't always understand that, so they'll say things that are like, well, this totally doesn't work. You gotta cut all that. I remember one actor saying in a comedy, it was like, yeah, you know what would actually be funny here?
Oh my God!
Jeez.
Yeah, that actor wasn't asked back from.
No.
So there's a certain element of like, what? You just have to be really.
I think it's being straight but kind.
That's it.
Yeah. I mean, to me as a writer, I love how it's hilarious how we're talking about me as a writer in this interview. But I think I don't want people to blow smoke, because there's no use in the workshop if you're sitting there and everyone goes, it's great, it's super great. No, it's just great. Okay, bye. Because you don't learn anything. But if people are open to having an intelligent but sympathetic discussion, that's great.
Yes, and also there's usually an understanding that if the writer doesn't like something you're saying, they'll kind of nod politely, but they'll just dismiss it. Like, I always feel that's happening too, where like, thank you.
I would love it if they said it like that. Thank you.
But David, he's a wonderful writer, and he's written tons of plays, and you can tell he knows what he's doing.
Oh yeah, he does.
It's got warmth and heart and a lot of humor. He's got this kind of sly sense of humor, which really, it's neat to see someone's personality kind of enter into a play. You're like, because he had to kind of change it, and there's some wonderful comic moments, but also some spooky moments.
He's got a really wonderful balance in this play. And as you said, it's just, I mean, at the risk of saying what you just said again, but it's that sly sense of humor. It's true. It's a scene will be going along in what you think is one direction, and then suddenly, bam! There's just a little joke that just kind of adds this little bit of sparkle that's beautiful, and the heartfelt moments are so beautiful and really quite devastating, and it's very affecting. It's very affecting, and just lovely. It's really lovely.
Which is kind of amazing with a story that it's so well known that you're still kind of in tears at the end.
Yeah. Yes.
I wonder what that is about. And that's the neat thing about this, having a brand new adaptation. You get a kind of a fresh look at it, but it's like Shakespeare play. It's working well, where you know that Romeo and Juliet are going to die, but at the end you're still kind of, did they have to?
Yeah. And as we were thinking, that was one of the questions I had around A Christmas Carol was, what do you think is so enduring? But then to hear how a modern playwright can inject his own sense of who he is on such a well-known story and still have it be true to some of those core pieces as well as his writing. Yeah, I think that's...
Well, I'm going to get a little, sound a little pretentious here.
Please.
But it's because it's truth, right? Yeah. The characters in Christmas Carol are human. They're very human. It's about a human condition or a bunch of human conditions, and that's often why Shakespeare continues to be, when it's done well, very affecting, is because it's the human condition. And I think that's what David's done with Christmas Carol he's writing from the perspective of himself and who he is as a playwright, but he's writing human people. He's bringing human beings to life on the stage. And as soon as you do that, it doesn't matter what the time period is. It doesn't matter where it's set. We still understand those people and we relate to them. And so that's what's affecting. And that's what's funny, and that's what's joyful, is that we relate to them because it's truthful.
Julien, how about you?
Do you want to get a bit pretentious for me?
Just giving you an opportunity, but no, all good. Don't worry.
No, I think that's true. I think that he's writing about Dickens. I think I would imagine Dickens and David have very similar ideas about their take on the world.
Yes,
they seem to be a good fit.
Well, yeah, absolutely. I completely agree with you. And Dickens famously wrote very, very real humans.
Well, I wonder if you need to get the right playwright, because if you were to get like a hard hitting, like strange, bizarre, I don't know, you could do a version of Christmas Carol, but it would
David Mamet's.
Yes, exactly.
Christmas Carol.
Lots of swears.
Words.
I can actually see David Ives writing a parody of David Mamet's Christmas Carol.
Oh, that's good.
That would be something.
Yeah.
I'd definitely go see that.
Yeah, that would be pretty funny.
So speaking of different adaptations of it, do you have like a favorite classic adaptation, like either like a different version of the play or movie or
You mentioned
TV
the Alastair Sim version of Scrooge as
that's the one I was familiar with. And like I say, I didn't watch it as a child. My family were English.
Yes.
We had some very English kind of traditions around Christmas, but I think if there was any traditions that were related to like books and stories and stuff, it was mostly the ritual of dinner and. But that's the first version I ever saw. But I always remember the Mickey Mouse one where he's cutting the bean and the bean can see through the bean. Like that, as a child, I remember thinking, that's so cool. That's so poor. That has to cut it so thin you can see it. So we're going to rig it up this year so that when they cut the turkey, the cratchits, you can see through the slice.
Nice.
That is so funny.
The look on your face, by the way, Caroline, it's almost like you had to gasp. You're like,
that is the scene that stuck with me. That is the scene that always kind of drove home for me the poverty that the Cratchits were living in, and they did not have a lot of money, but they had a lot of love, so they weren't poor in that sense. But the cutting the bean, and I have to say, as a child, this might be an insight into how I was raised, but I always thought it was an olive. Because I was more familiar.
Family, is it?
I was always more familiar with eating olives, and so I saw a round green thing, and in my head I was just like, he has to cut the olive. And then as watching it as an adult, I'm like, that's not an olive, but the point is the same. And that scene stuck with me absolutely.
One of my favorite lines from that scene is when Scrooge is looking through the window, and he sees, like, obviously they're cutting the bean, and he sees like the small turkey, and Scrooge says, "Oh, is that a canary?"
A canary.
But it's just such this tiny little turkey that they're eating. But,
well, in terms of Christmas, if I can just Christmas stories, I don't know how this came about, but we had no Norwegian connection in my family, but we used to read this. I remember there was a Christmas story about a tomte, which is kind of a prototype of Santa Claus in Norway. They have this little elf-like creature that kind of that looks after you at Christmas time. And I remember, but you know how you have those images of when you're a kid of stories, and it's so clear to me this little tomte would walk around, and he's looking in the window of the family and making sure they're all right. Then he goes to the stable and gives the horse some hay, and the horse is dreaming of being in the field again, and the little tomte, and then in the...
Oh, God, I love
funny?
this. I love it.
Why would a Norwegian story come to my house?
But I really love it. I love the idea of the tomte. The tomte is about just taking care of everybody.
Yeah.
Going, is everyone all right? Everyone doing okay?
Without any of them knowing it, So that's that was my Christmas.
Oh, I love that. Yeah. That's great.
So, what about Christmas Carol for you? Did you...
Not with my family is also British, and therefore tends to be kind of like television. We will sit around and we will play shuffleboard. But now my parents are going to hear this and go, "What are you talking about? For heaven's sake!"
Mine are going to say, "Why did you tell them all you ate was olives?"
Yes. I also didn't watch the Alistair Sim one until I was older, until I got married, in fact, because it's a tradition of my husband's family is to watch the Alistair Sim version every Christmas. That's on, so I shall be seeing that this Christmas when I go to theirs. But similarly to you, we had sort of more English family Christmas traditions, I suppose. We'd go to church in the morning, because we're what we affectionately in England call C&E. It's what you call Anglican here, except in England it's supposed to be Church of England, but it's actually Christmas and Easter, because that's the only time anyone goes to church. And not really just to sort of sing the songs limply and then go, hello, lovely, hello. Okay, can we go and have some booze now? And I'm making it sound appalling. But yeah, then we go and we'd have the Christmas dinner, and then playing. Usually, my father would set fire to the Christmas pudding. Which was always a tradition.
On purpose.
On purpose, yes, I should be clear.
Bring it around for everyone, light it up. Yeah.
The biggest this is not a Christmas Carol story at all, but I'm going to share it. The biggest Christmas tradition that we've always had in my family is the making of the Christmas pudding, which I've always really loved, which is that my mum would make, traditional plum duff figgy pudding, Christmas pudding. Never any figs in it. Don't know where the figgy thing comes from. Anyway, and then you'd stir it. Everyone in the family would stir it and make a wish. That's a Christmas tradition, including the animals. So there are many, many photos of reluctant dogs having their paws clutched to a wooden spoon. It's like, what? Oh, God.
Well, that's neat that you mentioned that, because I remember when we did the original, when I read the original, to see those traditions of Dickensian Christmas, we had Christmas pudding too.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Oh, you did?
Yeah.
Did you like it?
Oh, I loved it.
I love it.
I love it. But it's there in the Cratchit scene, and like those traditions have continued.
Yeah.
I think the difference might be,
Sorry.
I always felt like, modern life, we have whatever we want to eat all the time.
Yes.
Whereas at Dickens, if you were poor especially, it would be such a big deal to have an actual lovely dinner once a year. I remember my family, we weren't wealthy, but we weren't poor either, but we would go out for dinner once a month, and that was a huge deal.
Yeah.
We would take the whole family out to the local Greek restaurant or whatever it was, and that was like a kind of a exciting and wonderful. So that I try to channel that feeling in that Cratchit scene.
Yeah.
Yes.
I think we go out for dinner all the time, or we have lovely dinners, but then I think it would have been like
meat
pudding.
as well.
They never have pudding and meat exactly.
Meat. You didn't eat meat that much.
I think. I mean.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now it's just like, I'm going to go on my phone and order skip the dishes.
That's right.
I'll have this hamburger delivered to me in half an hour. Yeah.
Bryce, do you have a favorite kind of classic version?
Honestly, I think mine really also is Mickey's Christmas Carol. This is going to sound horrible. I've never seen the Alistair Sim version, which I know I really need to. But
it's available in EPL.
It is, absolutely. But yeah, for me, it was definitely Mickey's Christmas Carol. We had it like on VHS at the time, definitely aging myself. And my brother and I, we would watch it even like all year round. So it didn't have to be Christmas. Like I've seen Mickey's Christmas Carol probably like 1,000 times. I know it like the back of my hand, but for me, just that whole story, that was really my introduction to A Christmas Carol.
Yeah.
Oh, you know what's good is that Murray.
Bill Murray
version.
Oh, Scrooge.
That's really fun.
I've never seen that one.
It's really good.
Is it?
Yeah.
Good. Yeah.
That was So we had this kind of broken into two parts, because there's the classic version of the Christmas Carol that does it more. I don't want to say seriously, but more. It might set it in that time. So things like Mickey's Christmas Carol or the Muppet Christmas Carol, even with their original songs, it's still kind of set in England of that time period. And then you find modern adaptations of people in current society learning the importance of not being so Scrooge-like on there.
And really, Bill Murray's Scrooged is really the perfect example of that. Obviously, it takes place in the 80s, kind of like Wall Street.
That greed is good.
Yeah, greed is good mentality from the late 80s. So that's almost a perfect setting for that version anyway. And of course, they also have the Ghost of Christmas Past, Present, and Future in that version. One of the really cool things I like about that movie is that Bill Murray has his brothers actually in the movie with him. So his older brother, Brian Doyle Murray, who you've probably seen in like a million movies, he plays his father in the flashback to his childhood. And then his brother, I don't remember the actor's name, but I don't think he's been in too many other things, but he plays Bill Murray's younger brother, who obviously is the he's not the Bob Cratchit character, but yeah, he plays a pivotal role in that movie too.
Oh,
yeah, it's really good.
So real family affair.
Absolutely. Yeah. Caroline, do you have a favorite modern version?
I do, and it's ready to be dethroned because I'm very excited about this Citadel production.
Yeah.
But leading into it, it is Ebby, starring Susan Lucci as Ebenezer Scrooge as a woman. She's a modern businesswoman who has no time for love, and she is visited by 3 ghosts, well, 4, including Marley, and learns the importance of love and family. And I don't know why I love it so much, but it was filmed in Canada, so it's one of these TV movies. It was done in like the mid-90s, I would say, and it has the joyful experience of seeing a whole bunch of, when you film in Vancouver and then you see all of the Vancouver actors in roles, there's a ton of Canadian actors in it, so it's very, very exciting.
It's
called Ebby.
Ebby.
Yeah.
So does she go by Ebby in the movie then?
Yeah, I think her name is Elizabeth, and she goes by Ebby.
Ebby, okay.
Yeah.
Speaking of that, and this is totally off topic, but talking about filming movies in Vancouver, I remember in the late 90s or early mid-90s, there's a Jackie Chan movie called Rumble in the Bronx. So it takes place in the Bronx. However, it was clearly filmed in Vancouver. So you could see like the mountains and the Rockies and everything in the background as you normally would if you're visiting the Bronx.
Yeah, total classic.
That's pretty hilarious.
So if you were talking to someone who didn't know a lot about it, is there one thing that you'd want someone to know about Edmonton's theater scene?
Oh, wow.
Well, I think
it's pretty amazing.
Yeah, I'm not from here. Obviously, Belinda's not either.
None of us are in this room. We're all
interesting.
Yeah.
But it's unique. Some confluence of the wonderful theater schools we have here, the long winters, and the support for the arts that's in the general public and from the levels of government has created this kind of perfect storm. And the theater scene is so rich for the size of the city that we have. And by rich, I mean there's theaters of all different theaters and that produce plays of all kinds. So, which is incredible for an actor because you get to do stage production at the big stage, maybe perhaps more traditional fare. And then you've got Stuart Lemoyne, who does these wonderful, witty, urbane comedies, which I've never met anyone like Stuart Lemoyne. And you've got more experimental work. You've got the middle. What I'm saying is it's unique in its breadth. And so that's wonderful. And there's so much going on. You can pick and choose. So, I have to say the level and the degree of talent here. I don't want to blow my own horn.
Like I'm pretty awesome.
But I do find that the quality if you go to a different Canadian town, I don't think you'll find quite the level, other than Toronto, of the quality of theatre.
There's a profusion here of just to second what you said of incredible creative, innovative theatre of all sizes. People just create. I don't know what it is. Maybe it's something in the water. There's magic. There's magic theatre dust or something, because people just create constantly. And to a level of skill that is quite quite consistently remarkable.
Do you think the Fringe has something to do with that?
I think the Fringe helps. Absolutely, yeah, because of course we have, I believe it's still the second biggest Fringe in the world, and it's the largest Fringe in North America, I think.
I believe, yes.
Yeah. And again, that's huge and diverse and well supported and incredibly well attended, and draws people, artists from all over the world. We also have an incredible profusion of other festivals,
yes,
which draws artists from all over the world. So the cross-pollination that happens in terms of being able to mind meld with international artists, as well as share our own products and product. I guess I was going to second guess myself on that word, but that is what it is, and our own creations. We have a real little hotbed here, and I think it's amazing. I moved here to Edmonton from London, and a lot of people have asked me why. London is, of course, such a creative, artistic, huge hub. And I moved here for two reasons. One of them was because my husband lives here and I loved him. Still do. I shouldn't put that past him. I love him.
It was just your anniversary.
We got married on Halloween. Yes, so we've just had our anniversary. So I moved here. It was in part for him, but it was in part truly because when I got here, the theatre scene was so incredible, and I was so inspired and so captivated by the quality of the work and by what you could achieve here as an artist as well.
Yeah.
So yeah.
I also think it has to do with the audiences.
True.
There's a kind of a wonderful openness. They seem very open-hearted, but also very intelligent.
Yes.
So they know
they're discerning.
They're discerning, but they're very forgiving and willing to take a risk. And so I really think it has to do with.
They're very invested too.
Yeah,
they're very invested and very
generous.
Yeah.
Like they have I know I've talked to other actors in town from across the country, and they always say that audiences in Edmonton are the best audiences because they're not silly. They know what they like. They're smart, but they also have this kind of generosity of heart.
Yeah, it's a really wonderful combination.
A couple episodes ago, obviously this being a library podcast, we're fortunate enough to get to chat with a lot of authors and local writers. And a couple episodes ago, we had one of our featured writers on, Primi Mohammed, and local writer, obviously. And it was really interesting because we talked about that, even just the writing community here. It sounds very much so like kind of the theater community, where it's very close-knit, everybody supports each other, and kind of the audiences are very, I know obviously a lot of readers here, they're very excited about reading local works from local writers. Yeah. And so that's amazing to hear that obviously the arts community is really thriving here in Edmonton.
Yeah, it is.
Before we get to our roundtable questions, Bryce, what's coming up on our next episode?
Caroline, I know this is hard to believe, but we're coming to the end of 2019.
Well, it's hard to believe today because
it is.
we're recording in the past. But
we are.
I bet by December 6th I will believe it.
So that means it's time for our year in review. We're going to be taking a look back at some of our favorite movies, books, TV shows, games, and music from the past year. And Caroline, and while you and I have our favorites, we're going to be joined by two special EPL guests, Haley Redpath, one of our editors here on Overdue Finds, and Nancy Shang, who also appeared on last year's Year in Review episode. So that episode's actually going to be coming out on December 20th. So if you need any last-minute Christmas gift ideas, that's going to be a good one to listen to.
Yeah, I'm excited. I'm already putting my list together.
Nice. Me too. And also, too, I'm also one of those Christmas shoppers who likes to get all my presents in November. So the idea of leaving all your Christmas presents to December 20th, that's really stressful.
Are you stressing out about that?
Just reading that line, I'm like, oh my God, who's buying their gifts on December 20th? But there's a lot of people who do.
There are. And, Christmas time is a busy time of year. There's lots going on.
Well, and I was going to say, Julien and Belinda, how hard is it for you guys, especially, with doing so many performances, obviously over Christmas? How hard is it for you to kind of get that Christmas shopping done?
Oh God, I find I have a panic attack every year. Buying Christmas presents is terrifying. It's truly terrifying.
Well, the first couple of years we did the run of Christmas Carol. We did on a Christmas Eve show, and that made it hard. It made it hard just to get Christmas working.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that was the era when we moved Christmas to Boxing Day. That was a very clever move. Yeah, it's once in a while, especially the first few years, it got a little hectic. Trying to get all the shopping done, and with doing a gig at the same time.
Yeah.
Do you know what I find? Just generally, can we talk just generally about Christmas shopping?
Yeah.
Christmas shop. Does anybody else have the issue that they want to get? Just get anxious over that. You can hear it happening in my voice right now. The perfect gift for people, just something that really matters, and something that they will really, really like. I always see these commercials for various box stores where they have people happily lining up, with a trolley full of kettles and toasters and Lego sets, and I'm like, who are you buying this for? How? A toaster? What? It might be very fancy, but you can't buy what? A toaster? A coffee maker? Why? I'm not buying a coffee maker for some. I always watch those ads hoping that I'm going to get some sort of inspiration, and it's just like, no, that's madness.
Once in a while, I'm terrible at getting Christmas presents.
I find it terrifying.
But once in a while, you nail it.
It's true.
And that's what's really satisfying. I remember once I bought my little nephew this thing that melted old crayons, and you got new crayons came out at the other end. And so they were all the different colors of the melted crayons, and I thought that was cool. Like usually it's the presents that I think are cool, and he just said, "This is the best Christmas present I've ever had."
That's awesome.
Nailed it. Yeah, it's true. That is really satisfying.
But that very rarely happens. So I enjoyed buying a huge blow-up helium fish for my nephew too. That was a big hit.
Oh, that's really fun.
Because then something that you can. I love those ones where you have to put it together, and you as uncle you have to be good. The little one can't do it on his own, so you have to help him.
I do like shopping for kids. I have two nieces, and I do big brothers, big sisters, and I have a little sister who's awesome kid, and I love shopping for her. I love buying her a Christmas present, and I love shopping for my nieces. That's really fun.
Yeah,
it's shopping for grown-ups that I find makes me break out in hives, because I want to get people the nicest thing.
And there is something when you open a gift from someone who they've nailed it, and it's so perfect for you and who you are. You feel seen. You feel acknowledged.
And then exactly it.
And then so if someone gave me a toaster, it would be like, are you seeing? I don't feel seen. I'm not turning down the toaster, but it is about that thing. I see you as an individual, who you are, and this is what I.
My husband once gave me he found a first edition of Terence Rattigan's Separate Tables, the play's Separate Tables, and I cried. And he was completely astonished. He was like, "Oh, I thought you'd like it, but I didn't know you'd like it that much." But it was exactly that. I was like, "But you remembered that I like this, It's that exactly. Yeah, he nailed it. He really nailed it.
Yeah, but it can be stressful.
It is. Yeah, I agree. I don't like buying for adults. I don't know why. I love going to Toys R Us or whatever, or some other store like that, and buying for my nieces and nephews.
Yeah.
That for sure. I love that.
Yeah.
But it's buying for.
There's something really fun about buying for kids. Whereas it's not like I love to buy for adults if I can find the right thing, but it's finding the right thing that I find quite stressful. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So, quick roundtable.
I really went off on one there. Sorry, guys.
No.
Thank you.
It's our Christmas episode.
Thank you.
Yes.
Guys, I think we've had a real healing moment here.
I think we have. Yeah. So, quick roundtable questions. I know we touched on this a little bit earlier, but what is one of your favorite holiday traditions? I know we talked about a little bit about the Christmas pudding earlier. Is there anything else that, either you're spending time with your family or anything else that really stands out for you during the holidays?
Yeah, from being a kid, and my favorite thing was always the Christmas morning. We would have stockings, and it wasn't so much what was in the stockings, although that was really fun too. My mom was really good at putting things in there. It was a combination of items that were wrapped and food, but it was actually more like sitting on the family bed, I guess, the mom and dad's bed when you're little, and just kind of snuggling, and it was warm, and opening the presents, and And so that memory is really my favorite memory of Christmas, that tradition of opening the stockings and just chatting in the morning and having a cup of tea. So
that's great.
Oh, and then later on Christmas morning, around 11, you got to have a glass of sherry. Ooh. Even when you're a kid. That's very British. Wow. Oh, yeah. That happens in Christmas Carol in the novella.
As British children start drinking.
Oh, yeah. Great tradition. What is that funny thing in the novella, Christmas Carol? He gives everyone a shot of brandy or something.
Probably.
Bob Cratchit gives everyone even the little kids, Tiny Tim gets a shot of brandy, and that's odd. But, I mean, it wasn't, we just had one glass.
Yeah.
It's all right.
Oh, yeah.
At 11 in the morning, though, it was just kind of, a bit gross. But
we had the same Christmases. We totally had the same Christmases. Yeah, that's very British families. I remember the weight of the stocking on the end of my bed when I was a kid, like feeling that weight on my feet, and that was exciting. And it was, getting into the family bed. Yeah. And then apparently I used to drive my parents insane because I would, every present, I would pull out of my stocking and I'd go, ooh, I wonder what that is. Oh, it's very nice wrapping. And I'd shake it, and I'd look at it, and I'd turn it over, and I'd carefully unpeel it, and they'd be like, for God's sake, just open it. It's a cassette. that ages me, doesn't
kids,
it?
Though.
Yeah.
Like, you just rip things open.
But it was the family thing of sitting in the family bed, cup of tea, digestive biscuits. Oh my God, yes.
So great.
Yeah, I know. and then booze at 11. Yeah.
What about you, Bryce?
We didn't get to have any sherry, but if there was a Canadian equivalent of that, it would be like getting to sip Dad's Molson maybe on Christmas. We didn't get to do that, but that would be the Canadian version.
Totally.
Mine, it's funny because growing up as well, my favorite part of Christmas was the stockings as well. Like, I don't know what it was about it. It was, all these little like knickknacks, or, Mom would put like a comic book in there for us or something like that, or some chocolates. But definitely stockings for me. And even today, my wife and I continue the tradition of we like to wrap each other's stocking presents as well and do those. So, Cheryl and I, we both say like that's one of our favorite parts of Christmas, doing that. We don't have any kids, but it's it's still one of our favorite things to do.
I wonder if there's a sense of like you've been rushing around so much, and then Christmas morning is like like we can't do any more. You can't do any more Christmasing. It's now Christmas Day, and there's always that. I always felt like we can just kind of enjoy and be quiet. I remember Christmas as being kind of a very quiet time in my family.
Yes.
It was a quiet time to just kind of sit around and not have to work or do anything frenzied.
My father, I have to say, will still do the traditional thing of appearing in the doorway and going, now, could someone help me? There will be something that will need to be done. It's bless him.
Yeah.
Now.
That's something my mom has said the same around how you get to a point where all the preparations are over and it's happening and you might as well just enjoy it. She has a specific time. It is 4:00 on Christmas Eve, which is when growing up we would go to a Catholic Christmas Mass. We were not Catholic. It is a very long story, but we would go and she would sit there. She would listen. There would be the music, there would be the sermon, and she was just like, we're done. I've run around all day making sure that all the food is prepped and everything, but now I'm here, I'm in the moment, and then that just led right into Christmas and kind of having that transition.
I think that's
time.
Lovely. I know, as I said, we used to go to church. Sometimes we go to midnight mass, or sometimes we will go on Christmas Day itself. And my family now lives in a village in the southwest of England, in glorious rolling green hills of England, and the church is always packed, and it isn't about any kind of denomination or religion particular, although obviously it's Christian, but it's less about the religion and it's more about the community. Which I enjoy very much. I'm not religious at all, but I feel like that's a true Christmas spirit thing, is that everybody comes together and has a good sing along and listens to a nice message and sees each other on Christmas Day and says hello and wishes each other a wonderful day and a wonderful year. It's really lovely.
Yeah. Absolutely. So A Christmas Carol runs for over 20 performances before wrapping up on December 23rd. What's one of your favorite ways to relax and unwind before starting a new project in the new year?
Oh, I'm going to Mexico.
Perfect way.
Just for a little holiday. That's sort of how I think of decompress. I don't get to go very often, but it's interesting that you mentioned that, because as an actor, it's a very intense time when you're rehearsing a play and being in a play. I think the theory is that once you're up and running, things should settle down a bit, but I don't find that usually because maybe it's because the job is in the evening. So you're always kind of part of your head is in the show that's coming up. So you don't really can't totally relax during the day when you're running a play. And then what I find is that I kind of collapse after doing a play, and then I have a couple of weeks, usually have some time off, and then nothing really happens for about a week, and then I start piecing my life together. So there's that too. It's a sort of a very kind of full on and full off kind of profession.
Yeah. I don't know. I don't have.
You're always on because you're so busy. You're always.
Well, you're busy too. I mean, I think that's the thing. We're all multitaskers too,
That's
right?
true.
That it's that kind of profession. It's contract. So
You have a great
can-
phrase for it.
What?
You remember your husband said, Mark said, enjoy the loaf. Like you were like all keyed up, and he said, it was like, what am I? Or you had a bit of time off, and you were almost worried. You said,
Yeah.
I don't know what I'm going to do for 3 weeks or a month, and
like,
Mark
enjoy
said,
the
just enjoy the loaf, enjoy the loaf, just loaf around.
Loaf
for a
around
while.
for a little bit. Yeah.
But sorry, I interrupted.
Not at all. No, that summed it up just fine. I don't know.
But you're pretty much going all the time.
Yeah, but I don't think I'm unique in that. I think we all are. I think we all sort of go, okay, so, I've got a little time, so I can fit this in, or I can, I can fix that sink.
Oh yeah.
Does that too. Sometimes it's nice. I enjoy that. I'll find myself saying, you know what I'm really looking forward to doing after closing is just like cleaning my house. And I realize how appallingly, masochistic that sounds and pious. And I don't mean it to, but you know what I mean? Like sometimes the idea of just being in pajamas and going, I'm gonna clean a thing. Usually I get as far as, like the bath, and then I go, I need a cup of tea now.
Yeah.
God, hard day that one. Stop.
Do you clean to relax, Bryce?
Not at all, no, I don't. My wife does, though.
Oh, good. Well, that's good.
Absolutely.
That works.
I think for me, obviously, we don't have 20 performances, but it's just I normally always take kind of the week off between Christmas and New Year's. It's just a week I love having off, and you know what? I like sitting and doing nothing. Like really, that's amazing. Just getting to like relax. I don't have to go into work or do anything else, and just enjoy watching a lot of TV and just doing nothing really. Mm-hmm. Caroline, how about you?
Very similar.
Yeah.
I think having a chance to just kind of do things on your own schedule is important. So whether you're doing nothing or you're doing a lot, you get to determine how much of it you're doing, and I think that's really key. I probably lean towards the doing less, but I get to do it on my own timetable, so that's exciting.
Definitely.
Yeah. Thank you both so much for joining us today. A Christmas Carol runs until December 23rd, and you can find information, including ticket details, at citadeltheatre.com. And is there anything that either of you would like to plug?
I would like to plug the Garno Block.
Yeah.
Belinda's
Julien's
play.
going to be in it.
I'm playing a part in it, and it's amazing. It's
Thanks,
a wonderful
Paul.
play, and it's so local, but it's really exciting. Like it has all it's when is it? March 14th, you said?
March 14th.
Yeah, that's actually would be my next thing after Christmas Caroline.
Hey!
Yeah, and it's really, really a great play. It's funny and moving, and it's just wonderful.
So for those who aren't familiar with the Garno Block, what's it about?
The Garno Block is about a fictional cul-de-sac in the area of Garno, where in the play anyway, 4 months ago a very violent tragedy occurred, and 4 months on we see how the residents of the other houses are coping with this terrible thing that happened on their doorstep, and how this event shook shook the community and sort of what they do in the aftermath to kind of to figure it out, to deal with their guilt and their own little strange idiosyncrasies and peccadillos, and to pull themselves together as a community. It is Todd's book is a really wonderful social satire. The way I've just described it sounds deeply dramatic, and there is drama there too, for sure. But it's funny. It's funny.
Very funny. Yeah, it's just so cleverly funny.
Thanks, Pal.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you can find more information about that also at citadeltheatre.com.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing the new version of A Christmas Carol, and definitely the Garneau block. I love those Edmonton stories.
Definitely. So make sure that you're subscribed to the show, Overdue Finds, that is, not the theater shows. And that way you'll get each new episode as it's released. Please also leave us a review on Apple Podcasts. And of course, we'd love it if you could tell a friend about the show.
Yeah, and don't forget that we'll have a link to everything that we talked about in today's show notes. If you want to share your thoughts on this episode, please email us at podcast@epl.ca or hit us up on Twitter by using the hashtag EPL Overdue Finds. Thank you for listening, and we'll see you next time.